body-focused repetitive behaviors are kind of a chronic condition. So there are lots of ways we can manage them, and there are lots of ways we can help a person or you can help yourself find new behaviors. But there is kind of this lifelong component of like, this is something that we have to, work really hard at and figure out what works best for us.
Welcome to OCD Whisperer Podcast. Today with me, I have Juliette, who's a Michigan-based OCD therapist, part-time professor, and co-host of the OCD film podcast, Intrusive Plots. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I actually personally would like to know, where are you a part-time professor?
So I'm a part-time professor at the Wayne State University School of Social Work. So Wayne State is in Detroit, and they have a really wonderful social work school there. So I teach a DSM class, and then I also teach like a interpersonal practice theory class, as well as an assessment class.
Wow. All right, guys. We're girls, everybody. We're having a professor here. Okay. So I'm like, okay. Well, let's dive into talking about BFRB. So body focused repetitive behavior. So I'm going to just start with basics. Like, what the heck does that mean?
Yes. And that's a really good question, because what I've heard people describe with like BFRBs is that they are like the mental health condition that nobody's talking about, but that a lot of people have. So a body-focused repetitive behavior is a self-grooming behavior kind of gone wrong. So body-focused repetitive behaviors include hair pulling disorder, so trichotillomania, where a person will pull at their hair kind of on all areas of their body, or skin picking disorder, which is where a person will pick at their skin. And this is different than like popping an occasional pimple or like, tweezing a hair that is kind of in the middle of your forehead. These are behaviors that are really, really excessive. And then we also have nail biting and cheek biting and cuticle nail picking. So there's lots of different, body-focused repetitive behaviors. But the key kind of thing that makes them a disorder versus just like a grooming habit is that a person with a BFRB will spend a lot of time engaging in these behaviors, and they'll feel a lot of embarrassment or shame because they can see objectively that these behaviors are like causing them to lose their hair or causing them to have a lot of discomfort in terms of like bleeding or skin sores, but they can't stop because it feels like it's something that's like out of their control. So like 1 in 20 people will have a body-focused repetitive behavior at some point in their lives. But people often estimate that it's actually more common because not a lot of people get treatment for BFRBs because they think they're just like a bad habit.
Interesting. Okay. So it's more than just like if I bite my lip from time to time, or let's say, pick up my cuticle. We're talking about really when, I'm pulling hair from any area, like from what I know, right? It can be the head, it could be an eyelash, it could be an eyebrow, or maybe other parts of the body, or like maybe skin picking in a way where you reopen a wound and it never gets to heal properly. So it's like stuff like that you're starting to look at where, okay, we're doing something in a way that's kind of excessive and starting to like really affect your physical, actual kind of look of things, right? And really takes a lot of time. So if somebody is actually dealing with something like this, how can they recognize? I mean, that's one way, I guess, but what else could they do to kind of understand for themselves a little bit better of, what is actually going on for them? Like, why am I actually doing this? Or is there something I can do about this if it feels so out of control?
So one thing we do know is that body-focused repetitive behaviors are kind of a chronic condition. So there are lots of ways we can manage them, and there are lots of ways we can help a person or you can help yourself find new behaviors. But there is kind of this lifelong component of like, this is something that we have to, work really hard at and figure out what works best for us. But some good ways to like explore this would be asking yourself, like, is this something that I've done for a decent amount of time? And have I tried to stop? So maybe, if you're someone who really like bites your nails, maybe you've tried that nail polish that tastes really bad. So you've tried to use that. Maybe you've tried like just always wearing fake nails so you don't bite your nails. But despite all of the effort, it's really hard to stop. That could be a good indicator that this could be a BFRB versus just like something that you picked up, but is not as kind of ingrained in your behaviors.
So that's one was how to recognize something that this could be something that's going on for you. And then it's really how do I work with this if there's this feeling like I feel like I don't have control over this, right? Like, well, the question really, of course, I would think is, well, can I get control over this? Is this completely out of my hands? Is there something I can do?
Yes. So the cool thing is that in the last 10, 15 years or so, there have been a lot more people talking about body-focused repetitive behaviors. There are some fabulous like nonprofits and organizations that dedicate their work to helping people who live with body-focused repetitive behaviors, like find healing and find community. There's something called the TLC Foundation, which is a really fabulous nonprofit that does great advocacy work with body-focused repetitive behaviors. And they have support groups and they have tons of educational materials about all of this. But there are also some interventions and tools that you can learn or you can go to a therapist to learn. And a lot of it involves understanding the function that your behavior serves. So for some of my clients, they really struggle with like lots of anxiety and a lot of negative thoughts and low self-esteem. And for them, when they're picking at their skin, it's kind of a relief from all of that. And it serves as almost like a self-soothing behavior. And then for some people, when they're really bored or they're feeling like really tired or low energy, they will pull their hair. And it's almost a way of like giving you like a boost of dopamine and energy. So really understanding like what are the ways that this behavior functions. So you can look at the different like sensory ways this behavior functions. So is there something about getting, like there's a reason why pimple popping videos are like the number very commonly searched on like YouTube. There is something really satisfying about that. And for a lot of people, there is like a satisfaction piece, the sensory aspect of like feeling a hair that doesn't feel right and then feeling the way it feels as you pull it out. So understanding like what sensations might be driving this. Then you would want to look at like cognitive. So like what thoughts or beliefs that you have about yourself might be contributing to this. So a lot of times when people feel upset or when they're having thoughts about maybe not being a good friend, or maybe they feel, well, that would be a feeling, but maybe they're just having negative thoughts about themselves, or they start to think like, I don't know how to cope with hard things. I'm not good enough. That can lead people to pick or pull, right? Then we have like mood and feelings. So like I mentioned, boredom is often a feeling that drives people to pick. Sometimes anxiety, sometimes sadness, sometimes excitement, sometimes regret. Like it can really be anything. Then we have like the different kind of movements that can lead someone to pick. So for example, if you're the type of person who, when you're watching TV, you always kind of have your hand like this on the couch, and you notice that while you're watching, you start to kind of move your hand like this, and then you end up finding a hair that doesn't feel right, and then you pull it. We would want to see, okay, what are some other kind of replacement motor movement related things we can have you do, so it's not as easy to kind of have your hand find its way up to your head while you're watching TV. And then last would be like environment. So do you have urges to pick when you are in your car? Do you have urges to pick when you're in your bathroom? Do you have urges to pick when you are in class? And really figuring out like, what is the place that you pick the most in? So once you know all of these things, it gives you some really good information into like, when this is happening, why this is happening. And then you can start kind of trial and error replacing some of these things to either replicate the sensory feeling, but in a more kind of like positive way, or to like learn new behaviors that you can replace to start kind of changing the like habitual aspects. So like the actual like pulling or kicking and the kind of urge to do that is pretty biological, but the habits around it of like where you are, how you kind of go about it, that is something we can totally work on. And that's where people find a lot of like benefit and relief.
That's actually really cool. So that's a lot of stuff you shared. And, I'm just thinking of folks listening, right? Because of course, another therapist who's trained in this, you're going to recognize all those things, right? But for folks who are listening, if it feels a little overwhelming, I think part of what I just want to say is that, body focused repetitive behavior from what you just shared, that there's a lot more to it. It's not just, this random thing I happen to do and then suddenly I have a bald spot, or suddenly, I have all these kind of injuries on my, I don't know, it could be a finger, a scab that I continuously don't let heal, or maybe it's my face, or maybe it's my nails, whatever it is, right? It's more understanding, like you said, really what really is behind this, which requires to slow down and really kind of assess and evaluate for yourself. Okay, what's going on here? Why am I doing this? I love that you covered all those things, like, is it relaxing and soothing, or is it giving you some sort of like an energy boost? Is it more satisfaction? Is it a feeling driven? Is it just because of a habitual way you sit? Is it an environment? Like, those are all great ways to have folks really, if they're listening now and think that they're struggling with this, to kind of take that first step to understand for themselves, like, what is this really about? And I love that you separated, well, there's a biological component, like we all do some of these behaviors, but there's these other aspects of where we're going a bit beyond what's kind of reasonable and makes sense. And it sounds like there's a lack of awareness.
It's interesting because yes and no. So there's two different ways like these behaviors can show up. And most people kind of do some of both. So there's the like totally like out of your awareness. So maybe you're watching TV and you're almost like not aware that you've been pulling out your hair for like an hour. And then you get up and you look and there's like a pile of hair next to you on the couch. But then there's also the behaviors where you kind of know what you're doing, but it still feels out of your control, but you're aware you're doing it. But so the common is like just like a lack of control, but then you're right. Yeah. We can have like awareness of it or lack of awareness of it. And there's also like some benefits to this behavior. And there are lots of like people with BFRBs who talk about how like if it was possible to like pick at your skin or pull out your hair, and then every time you did it, it would like grow right back and it would heal immediately, there would be nothing wrong with doing this because it's soothing. It is something that can help people like relax. It is something that it's like a coping mechanism. But unfortunately, because like hair doesn't grow like that and skin doesn't heal like that, it can lead to a lot of like shame and embarrassment and guilt. And a lot of people will say like, I know that this is causing my body harm and I know that like, I just need to stop, but it feels also really soothing and really safe. So it's like giving up almost like a security blanket. Like they say, like thinking about never being able to do this again feels like devastating. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things to, work with and think about. But I think your point of just like, it's so much more than just like a habit or just something that you do. There's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah. And kind of the other piece too, as we're talking about this and unpacking it more, it's when you understand what's really behind it. I kind of like to think that then that's where you can see where can I intervene and what can I do, right? Because there are things in life that just we don't have a way to intervene. And then there's things in life we have where it's like, no, I can actually do something about this. And so I get to choose that. I get to decide that really. And, if it's like a soothing or a satisfaction or that piece, it's like, okay, well, how else can I self-soothe, right? I would imagine that's where we would want to go with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a lot of great resources. There's a company called Habit Aware they make a really cool bracelet called the Keen, and it's kind of like a Fitbit, only it tracks when you're engaging in these behaviors because you program it. But they talk about every time the bracelet kind of vibrates, they describe it as like a hug on your wrist. So, hey, what's going on? What are you needing right now? Do you need to stretch? Do you need a glass of water? Do you need to call a friend and vent about something? And thinking about it like that, of your body is like trying to let you know that something's not right and that you're needing something. That can be a more kind of like compassionate way of viewing it. Because a lot of times afterwards, people say, oh, I just feel like absolute crap. I don't know why I did this.
Yeah.
And really trying to be as compassionate as possible because it's not your fault and it's something that's really out of your control. But then there are things you can control that can help it be better.
Yeah, I love that. I actually have seen their bracelets and some posts on my feed on Instagram when I go on and kind of do my own stuff there.
Yes.
And I mean, I haven't seen the product itself, but I've read about it and I've looked at it and I'm like, this is kind of awesome. And it almost made me think about, sometimes we used to do things like put tape around fingers, so you could not give your padding that immediate release or pleasure of feeling, maybe bumps on your skin. But again, it's that awareness building is a piece of it. And then I love that adding that other element of like, well, hang on a second. Like if I feel like I want to do this, what else, what do I really need? Like, right. Is it that I actually feel maybe stressed right now? And that's a stress relief moment. Like you said, is it like, no, let me get some water, or no, I want to talk to somebody. And I love that you framed it that way, because I think that's something that maybe not everybody really recognizes or thinks about. And when if you slow down and really kind of self-attune, you can discover like, oh yeah, this is really what my need is right now. And then how can I get that need met?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, awesome. Okay, so you mentioned there's a couple of things though. You said habitware, you mentioned TLC. Is there anything else, another resource that's in there that we missed?
Yeah, there's a really great nonprofit called BFRB Changemakers, and they have trainings for people. They have lots of resources. I believe they also have support groups for people with body-focused repetitive behaviors. There's also something called the Picking Me Foundation, which is a really great nonprofit specifically for people with skin picking. And the woman, I forgot her last name. Her name is like Lauren something. She's a great like BFRB advocate. She has skin picking disorder, and she actually almost lost her limb due to an infection that got really bad. And she talks a lot about that. And then she started this foundation, and they do really cool virtual meetups and self-care art hangouts and lots of cool things. And then also the habitware company has an online community called the BFRB Change Collective. And it's like a monthly membership fee, but they have weekly support groups. And then they have tons of like really cool community resources and educational resources. And they have like a whole masterclass for people. They have so many cool resources. And I'm not in any way affiliated with them. I just really like the work that they do. So I'm always trying to give them a shout out. But yeah, I have some clients who have the bracelet, and there's one of them is actually purple, so it would match your outfit. But it's super cool for like those times when you're doing the behavior and it's so like out of your awareness. Because
yeah, I love that. That's a lot of like solid resources. And I mean, I knew of two of them, but I mean, I learned something new today too. So I mean, I really hope that anybody listening, and of course, we'll include that in the show notes, but that, you know that there are actually resources, there's communities, there's actually like classes, so you can educate yourself, kind of learn a bit more about what's going on for you, understand it better, and then say, okay, here's what I can actually do about it. So you don't have to feel so out of control or bad or shameful. I think as humans too, we're just so hard on ourselves. We self-judge so much. So, I mean, I think all of us can use a heap load of, kindness and love and patience with ourselves.
Absolutely. I also just remembered another resource. Really, tell me. There's a great podcast called the Fidget Podcast. And it's run by someone named Jason Yu, and he he has a skin picking, and he's also a therapist, and he has some really great guests on there, and he's got some really great discussions on self-compassion and different coping interventions and lots of cool stuff.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today and talking to us about this. And if people would like to find you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at OCD_therapist_Juliet. They can also find me on Patreon. I have an OCD lived experience Patreon community. So we do monthly meetups, and we have lots of cool community resources as well as like educational resources. And then I also have a podcast with my friend Peter Cannon, who's a director, and we talk about OCD representation in media. So we talk about movies and TV, and our Instagram is intrusive_plots.
I love that. And yeah, I'm going to give shout out to Peter Cannon because I did an interview with him about his movie Exposure.
Yes.
And, folks want to check it out. I think that's going to be a great film to check out.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's been nice to actually see more films coming out that are really representing kind of real OCD, I guess I'll say, instead of just like the typical monk or.
Absolutely. Yes.
I forget what else. It's usually portrayed more like I want to keep things lined up, or like a little quirky personality piece. And it's like, it's so much more. That's not even for scratching the surface. So it's great to have that.
I agree.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.